Hey everyone, I've been a SAT tutor for a long time, and what I do is I'll keep track of some of the difficult problems that a lot of students struggle with, and then I can present them here. So for SAT reading and writing practice, I've got a handful here that some of my students have found difficult. These are students that have scored high overall, but these have stumped them a little bit. So I'm going to go over some of the difficult questions on the SAT reading and writing practice. This first one here, we'll take a look at what it says and then see if you can figure out what the right answer is. It reads, Bengali author Toro Dutz, A Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields, a volume of English translations of French poems, blank, scholars' understanding of the transnational and multilingual contexts in which Dove lived and worked. Okay, so let's break this down. It says, some guy, author, wrote, A sheaf gleaned in French fields. And then it tells us more about that. A volume of English translations of French poems, and then something scholars' understanding. So someone wrote a book called A Sheaf Gleaned, which is, now they tell us more, is a volume of this. And looking at the choices, the blanks, this has enhanced scholars' understanding of the transnational and or are enhancing, have enhanced, or enhanced. So they've got a book that's a volume of English translations of French poems, and they want to say something about its enhanced scholars' understanding of some of these things. The key to this is, and you've got to be careful of this, when they'll have some kind of introduction in a sentence, like the topic, find the main subject here. Because Bengali author's book, A Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields, that's the name of the book. That is the thing that's doing the enhancing, okay? You be careful, they'll give you this little side information here of explaining more about what the book is. It's a volume of English translations and French poems. Notice how that's plural. There's a bunch of translations and poems. But the actual subject, the book, that's singular. It's one book. So it's really the book has enhanced, are enhancing, have, or enhance. Okay. Because the topic, the subject that's doing the enhancing is singular, it's a singular book. Don't pay attention to this. It has to be a singular situation in the answers. Okay, the book has enhanced, the book are enhancing, the book have. Okay, these don't make sense here because you're not going to have the singular noun book are enhancing, book have enhanced. So I can get rid of those. The book enhance. That doesn't make sense either. So this is a lesson, and you've got to simplify your sentence when they give these little extra information with commas, set off by commas. What is the main subject? What is the simple subject? It was the book. So this example right here, and I'm going to skim through this. Journalists have dubbed this guy's The Godfather rap. A title has appeared in hundreds of articles about him. The guy himself, Scott Heron himself, resisted The Godfather blank, feeling that it didn't encapsulate his devotion. Okay, so I want to stop and look at the choices. This guy himself resisted The Godfather nickname. So you can see the choices are nickname, they all say nickname, 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 nickname. Okay, so this guy himself resisted The Godfather nickname, and then they all have the word however. So it's about punctuation. So let's take a look at this. He's resisted the nickname, comma, however. Okay, well that kind of makes sense when you set off the word however. You set out with a comma. In fact, the first two, A and B, both have that comma choice right there. C says actually all three of them do. For A, B, and C does too. And then D, he's resisted the Godfather nickname, semicolon. All right, here's when we need to talk about semicolon. Semicolon, okay? All that is, and I've said this in many of my videos, semicolon is the same as a period, okay? It's a style thing that sometimes people like to use it when sentences are closely related, but it's for all intents and purposes, a semicolon is equal to a period, meaning if I'm going to use a semicolon, I should also be able to use a period there. Let's see if that would work. For instance, he himself resisted the Godfather nickname, period. However, feeling that it did encapsulate his devotion to the broader African blues tradition, the moniker he preferred. So this after, you can see this is not a complete sentence. This cannot stand alone. It's a long clause, but it says, feeling that it didn't encapsulate his devotion to the broader African American blues tradition, as well as bluesologist, the moniker he preferred. That cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. Therefore, I cannot use a semicolon because the semicolon would be like a period, meaning this would have to be its own sentence. So it's going to be A, B, or C. What's the difference? Okay. In A, it says, he resisted the Godfather nickname, comma, however, feeling that it didn't. All right, if I'm going to set that off, that however, I'm going to need another comma. Okay, and so I have to pause. Whenever you're wondering about a comma, just try pausing and seeing if it makes sense. So he himself resisted the Godfather nickname, however, comma, feeling that. So I need a pause there. I do. Again, this is a period, semicolon is a period. That's a full stop. Let me try B. He himself resisted the Godfather nickname, however, feeling that it didn't. So that definitely cannot work because after here again is not a complete sentence. So you can't use that. So the answer is C. So for this one, it says, from afar, African American fiber artists. Okay, she's got portraits that look like paintings. See, I'm skimming this. I want to get down to here where the opening is. Okay, so she's got paintings, human faces, clothing, so intricate that it seems only a fine brush could have rendered them. Okay, so she's a fiber artist. She's got some portraits that look like paintings, and seems like only a fine brush could have rendered them, made them. When viewed up close, however, the portraits reveal themselves to be, okay, all the choices say quilts. So these portraits are quilts. Blank, stitching barely visible among the thousands of pieces. Okay, so this is telling us more about the quilts. So these paintings are actually quilts. These portraits are quilts with the stitching barely visible. Okay, so let's go to the choices here. When viewed up close, however, the portraits reveal themselves to be quilts, comma, and the stitching barely visible among thousands of pieces. That doesn't make sense to me because say, and the stitching barely, I would have to say, and the stitching is barely visible or was barely visible. If I go to choice B, the portraits reveal themselves to be quilts, comma, the stitching barely visible among the thousands of pieces of print. So that makes sense because I'm pausing after the quilts to give you more information. Now, I could have used a dash. Sometimes I use a dash if I wanted to say they reveal themselves to be quilts, dash, and then give you more information about the stitching. But this doesn't give you a choice of a dash. So this is looking good right now, B. Let's take a look at the other ones. When views up close, however, the portraits reveal themselves to be quilt. There we go, semicolon, that's a period. Let me see if that works. They reveal themselves to be quilts, period. Stitching barely visible among thousands, that can't work because you can't just stop it and then have this be its own sentence. It's not going to work. And here is a period, same thing. If again, semicolon, period, as far as you're concerned, they're interchangeable, they're one and the same. So neither of those will work. So by process elimination, this does come out to be the answer. Here we've got a sociologist sits on a review board, tasked with adding new sites to Hawaii and register historic places, includes these places. This person's the person's name. Okanaka doesn't make such decisions, blank. Okay, so they all give us the choice single-handedly. So this guy doesn't make such decisions single-handedly, and then we have different punctuations after that. And then they all say, however. So let's see what we've got here. Doesn't make such decisions, blank. All historical designations must be approved. Okay, so this person doesn't make all the decisions single-handedly. However, all must be approved. Choice A. This Okanaka doesn't make such decisions single-handedly, comma, however, semicolon, period. That's a period. All historical designations must be approved by a group of 9 other experts from fields of architecture. Okay, that could make sense because this can stand alone as a sentence. All historical designations must be approved. Okay, that's a complete sentence. So if we use a semicolon, don't worry about, we don't capitalize the next word, so that's not an issue. This is looking decent right now. Okay, right here they're going to use a semicolon after single-handedly. That would mean Okanaka doesn't make such decisions single-handedly, period. However, all historical designations must be approved. If I'm going to use that, that means that by saying however after this sentence, like he doesn't make all his decisions single-handedly, period. However, all historical, that would mean that this next sentence would contrast what we're saying here. But this part right here gives you details on why he doesn't make all the decisions single-handedly. So that doesn't make sense to put this pause right there. He doesn't make such decisions single-handedly, however, all historical designations. Now that we know that this, after this part, all historical, down here could be a standalone sentence. When you have two different sentences and you're going to connect them, you can't just put a comma between them, okay? So because if I use C, it's a run-on, okay? If I say he doesn't make all the decisions single-handedly, however, all historical designations, I have to stop. I have to have some kind of pause after this. This is why this is looking, this one right here is looking pretty good because I have the pause after. And then D, he doesn't make them all single-handedly, however, there's no pause there, so that's definitely not right. So the correct answer would be A. Okay, so for this one, we've got 1943, World War II. A math professor was recruited by the U.S. military to help by solving complex equations, period. His subsequent career would involve more than just equations. So his following career would involve more than just equations. Blank, as a pioneering computer programmer, he would help usher in digital age. Now this one is particularly challenging, I believe. Because what we've got is saying the career after that, so he did these complex equations, that was his original career. But his subsequent career would involve more than just equations. So I could do this one, more than just equations though, colon. As a pioneering computer programmer, he would help usher in digital age. All right, let's keep that one in mind. Reading it again, his subsequent career would improve more than just equations, though, as a pioneering computer. So this is a complete sentence. We've got to look at that again. As a pioneering computer programmer, Hopper would help usher in the digital age. If this is going to be a separate sentence, it could stand as a separate sentence. I would need to treat it as such. So if I use B, it's a run-on because this first part, his subsequent career would involve more than just equations, though, period, as a pioneering computer programmer, however, Hopper would usher in the digital age. I need some kind of stop there, okay? Here's a stop. Let's look at C. Hopper's subsequent career would involve more than just equations. Stop. Though as a pioneering computer programmer, he would help usher in the digital age. So it doesn't make sense though because we're trying to say that his next career would involve more than just equations, though. Okay, what he ended up doing later was more than just equations, though. Stop. Stops there. I don't want a stop in between them. I need that though. Or I need some kind of pause there. Now looking at D, Hopper's subsequent career would involve more than just equations, though as a pioneer. There's no pause there at all. That just runs on, and that's not going to work. So what do we get down to is, I eliminated all of these actually, but I wanted to point out, why does the colon work? Because sometimes we think of colons as just using for, I'm going to show you a list. But this is something you need to look at. And let me show you, I brought this information into here. Colons, okay? Common uses of colons are we know the list example, okay? We were taught that in elementary school. We covered many fundamentals in our writing class. And here they are. That's a list. But much more common in literature and in advanced writing is that colons will announce right here or introduce or direct attention to an example or explanation, okay? or right here, a noun phrase example, okay, gives you an example. And here, an example, explanation example. So look at this. Many graduate students discover that there is a dark side to academia, colon. Here are my examples. Late nights, high stress, crippling addiction to caffeinated beverages. Okay, so I use the colon because I made a statement and then after explains or gives an example. Okay, and so here, up here, my roommate gave me the things I needed most. What were they? Companionship and quiet. The colon says, I'm going to tell you what those were. I'm going to give you an actual example or explain it better. Okay? It explains something that I was talking about before. Okay? An example or explanation. Okay, so in this case, this is why this works, is because for this one, again, it said Hopper's subsequent career would involve more than just equations, though. Okay, really? Explain that. Well, as a pioneering computer programmer, he would help usher in the digital age. Okay, so what I use the colon for is I made a statement about his career having more than just equations, and then my explanation comes after that. As a pioneering computer and programmer, he would help usher in the digital age. That explains more about my statement before. So that's what the colon is used to. Got to get used to that. They test that all the time. Now for this one starts off saying in 1453, King Henry became unfit to rule. He got really sick, got really ill. As a result, Parliament appointed Richard, who had a strong claim to the English throne, to rule as Lord Protector. Upon recovering 2 years later, so it looks like Henry, he was the one who got, it makes sense. Recovering, that was the one who got ill. That was Henry the Sixth. So now they're talking about Henry again, saying upon recovering 2 years later, comma, okay, or there's an introductory sentence, upon recovering 2 years later. Who recovered? King Henry, right? He was the one who was ill. Upon recovering 2 years later, comma, right away, I know that it has to be King Henry, or he, or this right here, the way this introductory phrase is set up, upon recovering, okay, who did the recovering? Henry. Let me give you an example of what I mean by an introductory phrase followed by the subject. So the correct way would be if we said, after finishing the test, she heard the bell ring. Okay? Incorrect would be after finishing the test, the bell rang. Whatever is doing the finishing, in this case, must follow after the comma. She, the student, is the one finishing the test. So we have to write she or the student. Whatever is the subject that is finishing the test has to come right after the comma, immediately after this introductory phrase. After finishing the test, she heard the bell ring, because she's the one who finished the test, and then she heard the bell ring. Not correct to say after finishing the test, the bell rang. The bell did not finish the test. Okay, you see what I mean? The introductory phrase, after finishing the test, after doing anything, the immediate word after the comma has to be the subject or the person or thing that is doing the action here. Okay, they will definitely test that, so pay attention to that. The word right here has to be Henry. All right, and let's look what they've got here. Upon recovering 2 years later, Henry, okay, that's good. Well, this says, upon recovering 2 years later, the reign of Henry resumed. No, okay, the reign did not recover. Upon recovering, Henry recovered. The reign did not recover. Okay, let me look at C. Upon recovering 2 years later, Henry's reign. No, Henry's reign did not recover. And then D. Upon recovering 2 years later, it was Henry who was, nope. So none of the other ones work. So pay attention to this. They have this introductory phrase. Okay, I talked about this earlier, upon recovering, or after having finished the test, comma, she left. Okay, not after finishing the test, the teacher let her leave. Okay, introductory phrase, immediately after comma, it's got to be whoever this is talking about. So it has to be A.